thank you for coming. I'd like to move to item 5, open session, then to item 6. I'd like to read this to you on public comments. At this time, any person may address the board on any subject within the district's jurisdiction which is not on the agenda. However, any non-agenda matter will be referred to staff for a report and/or action at a subsequent board meeting. And no action can be taken on any such item discussed unless the action has been authorized under section 54954.2, open parentheses, lowercase b, close parentheses, of the government code. Any person may also address the board on any agenda matter at the time that matter is discussed, prior to board consideration and action. Speakers are requested to limit comments to 5 minutes. We'll move to item 7, comments and presentation. Under number 1, director's comments.
You want to make sure there's a thumbs up first.
Okay. Do we have anybody from the public who would like to make a presentation to the board tonight? Would you step up to the podium, please?
Hi, my name's Mike Quinton. I live over on Hillcrest. Some of you know me, some of you don't.
Did you say Mike?
Mike. I just had a couple of quick issues, and I didn't know if you were aware of them. There is no lighting on the north side of Glendower, street lighting. Is this under your jurisdiction? Or, okay, and is there any repairs projected to be made, or anything like this is what I'd like to know. And then the other portion of it is our community park over in Glendower is really getting, on the south side, it's getting rodent infestation problems where it's going to become a liability.
That's Cam.
Okay, so that's what I'm just trying to make sure. And I was going to ask you, can you kind of lead me into who I might talk to get some of this taken care of?
Is he here today? Is Ryan Rushing? Sometimes he depends on meetings, but I'll give you his number.
Okay, because I just don't want to see any children get hurt over there, and they seem to be running and that kind of thing. I thank you for the board.
Hello everybody. Gail Warnick with the Rosamond Community Watch Program. Just want to give you guys an update on our cleanup last Saturday. We cleaned up the field adjacent to Jack in the Box. We cleaned up 2,280 pounds of trash. So it was a lot. And our next cleanup will be May 16th. We're going to go back to Sierra Highway again and revisit it. It needs it. So looking for everybody's support. Thanks.
Can I make a comment? Yeah. I'd like to point out that Gail sent me some pictures of that cleanup in there. In one of the catch basins, it appeared that people were using it as a dump. They were dumping trash over the fence into one corner, and she inquired as to who they could contact to help them. And I directed her to the supervisor's office and or the Kern County Waste Management as a regular service with that type of trash accumulation. They would order up a cleanup crew to come out and clean that up. If the volunteers are cleaning it up, at the very least, they could assist with some of the necessities to accomplish that task that they are digging for donations for to clean it up. I think this is probably about 6 weeks of cleanup that they have participated in and around Rosamond, and in some cases that they get trash right up on top of what they've already cleaned up. So I think they ought to be commended, the Warnicks and all the volunteers that have participated to clean up their community. Thank you.
Can I make a comment on the water issue, even though we're not in the agenda yet?
Yes.
I have a lot of plants that we put in years ago with a drip irrigation system. And this document, which is we have in front of us, has a lot of mention of what you can do and can't do. But the governor has said that any new homes and buildings would include lawns come with either drip or microspray irrigation systems. He says new homes will not be allowed to use drinking water for irrigation unless they have water stingy drip systems. And there's a whole thing from the Association of California Water Agencies, which basically says things like limiting outdoor irrigation to between 4 and 9 a.m. except for drip micro irrigation. Constructing a drip irrigation system for the garden, drip irrigation can save 15 gallons each time you water, and that's mentioned several times. So I would like to preface this idea that somehow I'd like to hear more as the rules come down that would in some way overlook the fact that that's a very good thing. And I've seen exceptions in some of the things in the paper that the governor has mentioned that would bring drip irrigation in. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is on the lighting again. He mentioned one thing, but in my neighborhood we're paying for lighting. And then I saw recently where you found money to reinstate lighting, and for people that voted against it are getting lighting, but we're still paying for lighting, for the lights. So why is that? This is what I want to know, is why we're still paying for it and other people who voted against it aren't paying for it, but yet they have it.
Council, you want to address that question?
The district will be coming forward with a new proposition to a scene process to address that very issue and to more equitably handle the situation.
Okay. I just want to say I'm not opposed to the lighting, I'm just opposed to the fact that I'm paying for something that they're getting for nothing.
Okay. Will be addressed very shortly.
Hi, my name is Scott Ford. I just have a couple quick things. Last meeting there was an issue that was brought up about one of the trailer home parks in Rosamond and the lines being very old and they're constantly breaking and having to be repaired. I was just curious, have we done any kind of like a cost analysis on this to see how much we're spending in labor to constantly repair this versus what it would cost just to replace the lines with newer material? And how much water is being wasted when these lines break?
It's a good comment and a good question, and yes, we have done a cost analysis, and what we're currently doing is we're trying to determine why we're fixing lines inside of the trailer park, where normally our responsibility stops at the property line, but in this case, this trailer park has meters, and they purchased those meters presumably from the district. And I'm not sure, and we still are looking for the original contract in the purchase order, and whether or not we installed those lines or bought those lines like a housing tract because of the meter installation. But certainly as soon as we find out, the trailer court knows, and they have been extremely good and responsive to our questions, and if in fact they're responsible for those, we're preparing a plan so they can start picking up that cost of repair. At least if we go in there and repair it, we'll recoup the cost.
Okay, thank you. The other thing has to do with the skate park. I'm not sure, I've heard numbers of what the funding is to get it rebuilt, somewhere around $200,000, $250,000. Is that $300,000? I was curious if we've looked at getting grants, whether it be from the state of California or from private businesses. I did a quick search on the internet the other day, and I found that Lowe's, Home Depot, McDonald's, Jack in the Box, Walmart, Kaiser Permanente, there's a list of them that will give grants from anywhere from $500, some of them up to $50,000 for community projects. Kaiser Permanente is a big one that actually will fork out even more than $50,000, but their thing is that it has to be something that enhances the, what's the wording? Creates a healthier lifestyle for the community. So what I'm suggesting is, first of all, if we haven't already sought these out, that somebody should probably start looking at this, because we could probably fund a good chunk of the money that we need. But also, if we adapt the plan for the skate park, add a running track around the outside. with asphalt. Doesn't cost very much money. You can put some little workout stations like they have up on base where you can do various exercises. Put a small park for the kids in there. What you get then is you get a park that's for the whole community to use, but it's also not, now it's not a skate park, you can call it an exercise park, and you can go to these medical companies and say, hey, this is something that promotes a healthy lifestyle in the community, and maybe get some, a decent chunk of money to help fund it.
If I might, really good comments. I appreciate the comments about the grants. Many grants that you spoke of come with so many requirements that they're not viable grants for this purpose. Then there are some grants, Tony Hawk in particular, there's some that certainly could help and assist in that development. The cost was an anticipated cost. It is an estimate from a skate park building company of a skate park that I had taken several kids to try out to see if this is something that would fit the community. It is a starting place, but that's the anticipated budget line at the very least, and it may not cost that much, but I have had some corporate contribution interest on a long term or a longer term, so they could help fund this. The workout facility and everything, there's 2 catch basins adjacent here. The smaller one on that big lot is the site where it was going to be planned to put it. This larger one right next to us was planned to have a walking trail through it, and the very thing that you mentioned about the workout facilities for seniors and anybody walking, they wouldn't have to be at the skate park. They could walk through there, and they could, as they're walking the neighborhood, come in and use those exterior workout facilities that are largely in use in the Los Angeles area. Very nice equipment. That was an overall plan in addition to the skate park. So I appreciate your comments. It is something that we were looking at in the past, and should we move forward with the skate park, we'll put all of our efforts into corporate donations to get that built.
Thank you. I'm sure also that if you need some help assembling equipment, I'm sure that the community will chip in and help with that. I know I would.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello this evening, my name is Albert Gatton. I just want to inform the board as well as the community that the Rosamond Chamber of Commerce is going to be having their annual elections coming up this month, or this next month on May 21st. So if anybody has some input that they'd like and see some change at the chamber, now would be a great time to start coming to the meetings, voice your opinions, getting involved. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Carolyn Conti. I've been a resident for 43 years. I am currently on the Rosamond Little League Board, and as you're charged with the Parks and Recreation, I would challenge you to, in addition to just a skate park, to think about soccer, football, and baseball fields, because we need something in this town for the kids. The school is retrieving their property from us for our practice fields. We have an issue with the county not allowing us to update what we have in their park. We would like to have a complex for our kids. So in addition to just a skate park, I would challenge this community to get together for our children, so we don't end up with deadbeats, dropouts, and drug addicts. We need something for these kids. That ball field has been here 50 years. We received a grant from one of the solar companies to put up new bleachers. And the county has made the stipulations for the permits so ridiculous that the grant we received is now 1/3 of the cost just to replace bleachers on that field. And we need to do this for our kids. We put in new sod 4 years ago. The county turned off the water and killed the grass. We have the lousiest baseball field in the entire league. And it's an embarrassment. So I would challenge you to find, in addition to grant writing for a skate park, to do a complex for our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing none more comments, let's go to item 7, comments and presentations. Director's comments.
I'd just like to say welcome to everyone.
I would give Mr. Shingeldecker's comments, but also the Rosamond Municipal Advisory Council heard from the test pilot school director last meeting. And we also heard from the Rosamond Youth Football, and they give awards to people who have been supporting them in the community, the businesses that have been helping them. And the RMAC announced for their 4 different categories for Persons of the Year, Lifetime Achievement Award, Educator of the Year, and Organization of the Year. And you'll not be too surprised that the Persons of the Year that were selected are Gail and Paul Warnick of the Rosamond Community Watch, Lorelei Oviatt, who lives here in Rosamond, and is Director of Planning for Kern County, whose name is for her Lifetime Achievement. And Harold Roney for Education, he's the principal of Rosamond High School, which is an award-winning high school. And somebody who's been along helping before Gail and Paul asked them to has been Mortensen Construction, and they're our Organization of the Year as well. And we hope to be presenting everybody with an award from not only the Second District Supervisor, but from other the Assemblymen of the State Senate type thing on May 21st. That's their next meeting. That's a Thursday at 7 p.m. So welcome to come. And our speaker that evening will be an interesting speaker of high-speed rail. You've probably heard of it. It may be pie in the sky, but they're coming to Rosamond to talk about it. And if you want to have a very good presentation, we'll have a good one for you this next Thursday night.
Mr. Glenn?
There's one empty seat there. I see some of you standing in the back, there's a couple there. The last California Special Districts magazine that came out has our general manager, he's the president of your association, and he's talking about the value of the legislative value of Community Service District Association, and I think we ought to give him a hand for not just leading the district, but leading the community of the CSDA also this year.
Our seat's on you.
Welcome. I was talking to my neighbors talking about the fact that when the kids mark the fences up and your walls and all that, we live in a city, we don't have any of that. And it's because of our water district, and I want to commend them for getting right on that, because they do get right on it. But I think if it's county property or state, you can't touch it, right? Is that right?
You can.
Oh, you can still do it?
State, you want to stay off of county, we can easily do that.
Well, thanks for taking care of it.
I'd just like again to thank you for coming tonight. Let's move to item 2. Presentation. We'll move to item 8, informational items. Under number 1, General Manager, update on district projects, recycled water master plan. Mr. Perez.
I apologize to the community. This was intended to be a PowerPoint presentation, and I just didn't have time to get it together, and my PowerPoint skills in the last 15 minutes of before our meeting was real limited, but I did try. Before you, you have slide pictures of various lines on a GIS map. And in your first photograph, page 40 on the bottom, it shows in green from a 10,000 foot level view, what pipelines we have installed already. The red indicates the potential pipelines to be installed for recycled water. Now, this master plan was developed in conjunction with the permitting of the wastewater treatment plant. And certainly, in a master plan, lines are drawn on a map, they can change, but this is kind of a guide. If you go to the next slide, page 42.
I just had a quick question.
Certainly.
You have green out of 140th Street West, is that right? That's for non-potable water?
Actually, that's the water bank
Is
out
that
there.
non-potable water or is it potable water?
That's all potable water.
So it's not really a green line, it should be a,
That green line out there is a pipe that's already installed.
okay, my understanding is the green line we have here is already installed, but it's for, on Sierra Highway, for example, but it's for the non-potable water.
That's correct.
Okay.
But the one out there is potable.
Potable.
That would, if it goes out to the water bank, it'll be recharged and at the water bank, if it ever gets out that far. And currently, Lahontan requires a 4-to-1 blending match. So for every 1 acre foot of recycled water, we have to put 4 acre feet of probably table A water from the aqueduct into it, or water that we buy from some source. Page 42 shows a potential line for potable water to the high school. However, that line's already in, and it's all but connected at the well site at 30th and Rosamond Boulevard. It was put in for emergencies in the event that the high school had, and they were experiencing high arsenic. We could switch over if they had to do this in a hurry. We could do it, probably take us a couple hours, and we'd have them up and running again. So it's already in.
When do we expect the plan to be finalized?
I'm not sure at this point. We're still going back and forth with Lahontan and the Department of Drinking Water. They have to review our master plan and the like before it goes back to Lahontan. Lahontan has meetings every quarter, and I'm not sure if it'll be in June now or in September.
But it's close.
My understanding is that, well, the high school provides for their fields, but we sell them the water for the drinking water, is that because that's what they had to do
No.
to expand?
No, they still use that as drinking water also. We do at many of the sites, the school sites, we have them on ours, but they're not tied into our system as of yet,
For the high school, is
for the
not?
high school.
And we did put that line in recently?
That was put in before my time.
Okay.
Page 44 shows in green the recycled water line running up Sierra Highway, north of Rosamond, and where it crosses the freeway, and it's stubbed out at the access road. Also, next in that general vicinity is where sewer ends at the north part of town also. But the red line that you see is an alternative route for recycled water to come into the high school and serve the high school for their football fields, baseball fields, and their landscaping. Page 46, another alternative route coming from the north. It has a gravity feed from that area, and that's why it would serve it well coming that direction. And it goes past the school, it serves the school, goes past the school, and hits Holiday, goes west, and serves the West Park area. An alternative route and the potential of a loop system for recycled water would be where the green line crosses the freeway at Patterson, and then turns into Holiday, or to Gaskell on the west side of the freeway. would pick up the line at the freeway and go west to 40th Street and then into West Park, tying into the other alternate route from the high school and creating the loop. An alternative route from the Gaskell and the freeway. This one,
Page 50.
page 50, yes, I'm sorry.
Is this the shortest amount of pipe we have to put in?
Is this the shortest?
The least amount of pipe we have to put in to make this happen?
No. This one that you see on page 52, it shows the line that is north of Rosamond and potential right-of-way on Edwards Air Force Base to take a water line north to Silver Queen. However, knowing that the county, I was on the Board of Supervisors when the county was granted this old Highway 14, it became a county road, and now we can take that water line up to the gold mine via encroachment permit along the county roadway. That'd be the shortest route. That's that dark red line that I drew after the fact. It wasn't on this map at the time. And that line that serves the gold mine, incidentally, will be paid for by the gold mine and the pumping paid for by the gold mine and dedicated back to the RCSD. That way they will pay for it, we won't be out the money, and then they'll pay us for the water on top of that.
They have to go into the freeway again. Why wouldn't they just pick up right there before we cross the freeway and go north?
Good question. That was the most logical easement because there's a gas line running just to the west of the access road, and Southern California Gas didn't want to have any part of us being close to them and digging anywhere close to their line. Their line was had a I can't remember the dimension of the easement, but for their dimension or diameter pipe, with our pipe going in within 2 feet, digging within 2 feet of their line, they were making it extremely difficult. So the Edwards Air Force Base, they have an easement, but they didn't have the environmental work done on it, and it would have been cost prohibitive because the easement was so big, and the swath that it cut would have taken forever going through the federal government. A light came on, I remembered that that was a county road, we could get an encroachment permit to go up the county road. And I believe that's what we're gonna do. I spoke with, he told me personally that they are now seriously looking to start the engineering on that line. So D. Jasper and Associates from Bakersfield will be contacting me shortly to start working up the engineering on that. GEI will coordinate with D. Jasper on various elements in the permitting and their segment that they will be building. Number 54, page 54 is just a shot straight out to the water bank for the potential of delivering recycled water to the water bank for recharge purposes. That's future.
That would pretty much be cost prohibitive, though we can get our water a lot cheaper from the California aqueduct.
Certainly, but in the event that we expand at some point in the future, I don't think it's totally out of the question to not be able to send that water out there in the event that we need to do so.
Maybe plan for the future, maybe get an easement along Gaskell.
Yeah, I think that would probably serve us well. That easement, I envision from the water bank, having a dedicated line from the water bank where we have water stored into our system and become independent in our ability to move our water from the water bank into Rosamond. Currently, we put it in the West Feeder with AVAC, but we do a lot of coordinating in order to accomplish that task. Page 56 in the last of the slides. This is the corner, the north-west corner of Rosamond Boulevard and Sierra Highway. This is Rosamond Hills. The one thing that's missing here is, and I don't believe the engineer was aware, but right at the north end of the original portion of Rosamond Hills, I think the pipe goes right between those buildings and it stubs out just past Desert Street currently.
So it actually goes out there right now.
Yes. In fact, we could serve.
They don't really plan on going to 20th, right? Because it's still the natural gas line.
Up what?
20th is still the natural gas line.
To the north? This is Rosamond Boulevard and Sierra Highway.
Should Rosamond Hills.
And Rosamond Hills.
I'm looking at a red line going down Rosamond Boulevard, and then going up 20th Street West. We're looking at 56.
Oh, I see what you're looking at, yes. No, we're not going that direction. That would be going through the buildings.
Okay.
I think what they intended that to do is go north on Desert.
Okay.
But we're stubbed out right to the northeast corner of the school, just past Desert, just west of Desert Street. We can serve the school and the Kern County Park in relatively short order. We're not far away, and that would be a good service for their needs. They need the water, and we would need to be able to distribute that water, and we're there in several places to accommodate that. So that's a short primer on our recycled water and where our pipelines are and where we hope them to be in the future. That's the end of my report.
Lots of people still have this. Just, Scott, you got it.
To give you a little history, Director Landsgaard, you asked about the high school. I believe it was around 2006, 2007. I'm not sure of the date. But at that time, the high school, their wells dried up. They were sucking sand. And so we had an emergency action to where we ran a connection over to the high school and hooked them into our system. Their well recovered, and they were able to go back on their well, and then they went ahead and, even though we're still connected, they valved out shut the valve, and they're still operating off their own well at this time. But if their well should go bad again, or because of the adjudication, they need to go into our system, then they can do so easily.
How about West Park School? Is it on?
It's on our system.
Is it on our system?
It has to be.
Mr. Perez, are you going to make Mr. Hampton's presentation?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, he gives his apologies for not being here, but they had 4 line repairs in the system this past reporting 2 weeks. They had 6 angle stop repairs at various addresses and installed 3 new service line connections to Legacy Homes, sewer cleaning at Legacy Homes, clean sewers in Rosamond Boulevard east of 15th Street, 19 lock-offs, and currently are reading meters for billing. They had 1 sewer, they had a backup, and when they unplugged it, it had a pressure blowout in a toilet. And it was unfortunate. We had no idea because we did it in the same manner we always do, and for some reason there was a back pressure in a business, and nobody got hurt, and it was cleaned up.
Item 8, 3 district accountants. And item A is the third quarter financial update.
Thank you, members of the board. I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank you all for the opportunity and your interest in the financial transparency of the organization. As an accountant, it's kind of exciting to put this stuff together because it's the language I speak, but for the most part, it's going to be really, really boring to the rest of you. So this will be the third quarter financial report for the 9-month period ended March 31st, 2015. These numbers are unaudited, as a reminder, and what we try and do is we adjust the actual numbers for things typically that may be collected in April that were from earned in the period of March. We accrue them back so that there's a more reflective ability against the budget. So just keep that in mind as we're going through here.
But just to be clear, everything we're seeing here is we're looking at revenues and expenditures. 75% would be the norm if there was a norm. It would be right on what we wanted. And anything higher than 75% revenues, we put in more money than we thought. Anything lower is less. Same thing with expenditure. We spent more than 75%. We spent more than we thought. And less than 75%, we spent less than we thought.
That's correct.
We got the parameters which are giving us this report.
That's correct.
Okay.
So more is better, or less is better, depending on what you're looking at.
Okay.
It all depends.
Based on that 75% number.
The district overview, we've reported a net revenue of $203,000 for the period ended March 31st, which is significantly under budget. The budget had a projected surplus of $979,000 for the total year. So basic math would tell you that we should be somewhere closer to 700 and something thousand, 750,000, 730,000. But because property taxes and the CSA money, that only comes in twice a year, in July and December, this number will be much closer to the budget number as the district as a whole when those monies are accounted for in the fourth quarter report. On page 2, jump into the water fund. We're at 64% of annual charges for service are in line with expectations, while the installation charges lag at 14% due to the less than anticipated development. The interest in miscellaneous income is at 613% due to an unanticipated contribution against labor for hydrant installation. We were required to put in 2 hydrants, one at well 9, one at the wastewater treatment plant, and the assistant general manager insisted that they pay us up front for that labor, so it offset our labor costs plus at the fully burdened rate. So we didn't lose any money on that, but we're required, according to generally accepted accounting principles, to record it as a revenue and not an offset of expenditures. So you'll see it offsets it in total, but it will skew that budget line item because we didn't budget for it. We weren't expecting it. The water fund expenses are well below expectations at 62%. As Director Landsgaard mentioned, anything below 75% this time of year is good at the expense level. So total expenses are at 62% of total budget for the water fund, which is good. The salaries and wages are a bit higher than anticipated, but the holiday sick and vacation pay is probably much lower, so it offsets it. So what we budgeted for in holiday and sick, we made up in regular salaries and wages. Repairs and maintenance are 87%. Utilities and business expenses, 67%. Pretty much everything came in either in line or under budget for the water fund to create a surplus of just under $62,000. For the 9-month period ended March 31st. The sewer fund on page 3. Revenues are at 56% and have been adjusted for the change in base fee collection procedures. We were accruing those back, so we got our check from the county in April. Those revenues have been pulled back into March so they more accurately reflect the activity of this period. Permits and fees came in at 41%, connection charges came in at 13%, and interest and miscellaneous income also came in because of the hydrant. We split that revenue between the wastewater treatment plant portion and the water plant portion. So we got more miscellaneous revenue than we were anticipating, which is good. We also have higher interest because we've reemployed our funds at the investment level to our favor. Sewer fund expenses are in line with expectations for these 3 quarters. We're at 76%. Depreciation continues to be a bug because we didn't budget for the wastewater treatment plant. As I was doing my discovery when I first got here last year, I determined that the wastewater treatment plant had been left on the balance sheet as a CIP, what's called a CIP, construction in progress, which is not a depreciable item. When I worked with Steve and John, I realized that it is a depreciable item. It is in use for its main purpose outside of its recycled water ability and should be capitalized and depreciated, but that was not included in the budget, so this will be overstated. Fortunately, it's a non-cash expense, so we're not actually paying for it. It's just an offset in the budget. But otherwise, sewer fund's doing really well. Made $232,000. It's in line with expectations.
This before you already have the April 10th tax payments included in that, or no?
The April 10th tax payments for...
Most people don't pay their second half taxes until after April 1st.
But the county pays us the sewer fees monthly.
Oh, they do? But they still have to collect them first, don't they?
Mm-hmm. They pre-fund it, or post-fund it, depending on the timing of it. Okay, streetlights, funds 3 and 4. 3 is our arterial lighting fund. Fund 4 is our residential lighting fund, or street lighting fund. So I broke it up into the 2 last reports so that we could look at the activity of each fund. In aggregate, the 2 funds, as one function, have created a surplus of $43,000 for the period ending March 31st. The streetlight fund, Fund 3, has sustained a loss of $4,000, while the assessment district has generated a surplus of $47,000. The total revenues are significantly higher than anticipated due to the lighting fees being placed on the tax bill. We're getting more money, and the expenditures are 22% lower because we turned off the lights. Any questions? Okay. So that's the lighting function as in total. The next page is just Fund 3. So you'll see the details here. Really no surprises. The revenues came in at 83%, while expenses came in at 60%. So we're working together, doing a thorough analysis with our consultants to determine where each light is in the district, to determine how much that particular light is costing us versus the revenue we're collecting against that particular light. And the 15-16 budget should have a much more accurate depiction of that activity. Fund 4, My World. It's creating the surplus because we've collected a lot more money this year. As you can see, revenues are 258% of budget because we didn't know that we were getting that money, which is a good thing. We're controlling those costs. We're well below budget in that line item, but when balanced against the street lighting fund, Fund 3, the 2 funds are commingled at this point in terms of function, and we're working on breaking that out so that we can have a better picture of what's actually happening. Moving on to park funds. No surprise here, park funds in total are performing poorly. Total revenues are at 52% of budget, expenditures are at 56% of budget. Again, I'll reiterate that most of this revenue sources are property taxes and the CSA money that we won't get until July. So we'll roll that back into June, and the fourth quarter report will more accurately reflect what we expected with our budget. But to the management's applaud, they have recognized that the revenue sources are low and have controlled the expenses against that. So we've kept the expenses at 50% versus having them at 75% according to the budget. So they've taken very proactive steps to manage that, and I applaud them for that. Next page is fund balance. This is kind of just a roll forward from last time. Fund balance is a term used by accountants to discuss a fund's earnings or losses over several fiscal years. It's synonymous with retained earnings in the private sector. It's not to be confused with cash. It's simply how much that fund has earned or lost over the course of a period of time. The water fund is projected in the third quarter to have a $24 million fund balance, where Parks is at a $2 million deficit. That's your loan that you're dealing with. The sewer has about a $15 million fund balance surplus, and the street lighting fund has a loss of about $33,000. Everything's projected to stay on course in terms of fund balance at the end of the year, according to the original fund balance projections made in the budget process. The final page is the cash balance.
Can we stop there on the card for just a second?
Yes, sir.
The payment that we're going to make in June, okay. Will that change in this quarter? Will that, when we make that payment, will that decrease the amount
When we make what payment?
When we make the payment, the $500,000 payment
To
the
the loan?
fund, park fund.
No. It will not affect fund balance because you're exchanging an asset for a liability. So it doesn't, it washes through, it nets to zero in fund balance. Last page is our cash balances. I'll reiterate that this is the sources and uses for the third quarter only. This is not where we stand with cash. This is not how much money is in the bank. This is not how much money is in the treasury. This is how much money came in and how much money went out. Physical cash. So the water fund took in $393,000 more than it did than it spent. Sewer fund $643,000. The streetlight funds brought in $35,000 more than they spent. The parks lost $13,000 for a total of just over $1 million. And with that, I will take questions or say thank you. Questions all on.
And one burning question, that's not a burning question. Do you not worry about graffiti abatement?
Worry about?
I mean, I don't see graffiti abatement. It's one of our 5 purposes and powers. I don't see anything budgeted there. It's just a small item. We don't have to worry about it. Or
It's not a separate fund. This is at the fund level. It is an activity that we have, but it's budgeted in park funds. So it's part of the activities that we're taking care of in what we call Fund 51. It's our public works, public maintenance fund. So any salaries or chemicals or activities, things that we purchase or use to clean up graffiti have been accounted for in the park fund activities.
And the other question I have is, these cash balances are based on, and projections are based on the August 27, 2014 budget itself?
The cash, this
Yes.
last page here,
Yeah.
is only activity in the 3 months ended, or the 9 months ended March 31st.
Well, the reason I'm asking that,
Cash taken in, cash used.
Parks doesn't have any money coming in unless it's coming from the unrestricted, the $230,000 of unrestricted money we put in there, our money that comes from county for maintaining the service areas, is that right? And so when you're talking about, you portion the $230,000 at the tax money.
We billed 2 of the CSAs in December, and we billed the other one in July. So we have some money. This is money from July 1st to March 31st. So all of that 9 months of activity has been accounted for here. So we have gotten some of that so far.
But what about the ad valorem tax money? Is that reflected in the money that Parks does?
Yeah, because we get it monthly.
Okay, so
Yeah.
in other words,
We get property tax monthly.
but to be sure, Parks never generated that money. We just budgeted to take 100% of our discretionary funds and put it in parks.
Right.
Yeah, okay, and even with that, we spent $13,000 more than we took in. Okay.
Gotcha. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
You stated on the first page that the net revenue was 200,000 and you projected to be 900,000. Why was the plan so far off? Even when we're looking at the lighting page, your assessment was 23,000, yet our spending was at 65,000. That's a huge increase, a huge difference from what you're planning. Especially going into the third quarter, you still have 3 more months.
It's a good question. There's 2 reasons. One, we haven't gotten a lot of our property tax assessments for the next 3 months, sewer-based fees for the next 3 months. And we haven't gotten any of the CSA money that's going to come in July. That's going to increase our revenues. The second reason is that we didn't account for the wastewater treatment plant depreciation.
But you know when the property taxes income are coming in throughout the year.
Mm-hmm.
You know they're coming in July, so why would you plan already to be at that level?
Because this budget to actual report takes 100% of the budget for the entire fiscal year versus what's actually happened until now. So we don't plan it on a month or quarter basis, we plan it on an annual basis. It'll catch up, exactly.
So you're saying your liabilities are always going to be higher in the beginning?
Well, this report doesn't address assets or liabilities. This is revenues and expenditures.
If you go in that direction, it always seems like you're going to be chasing yourself until the very end.
That's municipal finance.
Okay, move to item
8.4 legal update, Council?
Yes, I just wanted to supplement the information I provided to the board regarding Proposition 218 and the requirements for water rates and similar rates charged by the district. Yesterday, the Court of Appeal in Southern California issued the decision with regard to the City of San Juan Capistrano's tiered water rates. And in that case, the court held that the tiered rates adopted by the City of San Juan Capistrano, which topped out at 4 times actual costs incurred, were improper because they did not correlate with the actual cost to provide the water. The court did find that tiered rates can be constitutionally adopted if they are done properly to correlate to the actual cost of procuring the water and operating the operations of the district in question. Based on that and prior actions and discussions and directions from the board, I'm recommending that we do an updated rate study to confirm that our rates are in full compliance with the San Juan Capistrano decision and the California Constitution.
I have a question that's quite simple. Why their math did not work?
Their math did not
Tiered rates
work.
are totally legal if your math works.
Correct. Their math had nothing to do with their actual costs. There was no correlation whatsoever, and they didn't even try to make an argument that there was a
Because
correlation.
tiered rates are the largest weapon to control waste of water.
Right, but you need to correlate them to the actual cost of acquiring that water.
Having said that, I believe it begs the question, or begs the opportunity to take on a water rate study to determine where are we today.
Right.
And if
That's my
there's an
recommendation.
adjustment, we need to make those adjustments in correlation with this ruling.
Yes, that is my recommendation.
And the other question I had is, if we were to abandon our tiered rates altogether, this question for the accountant, what would be the anticipated revenue loss if we did so?
I could prepare some projections and iterations for you. I couldn't answer it off the top of my head.
I would recommend that be done in connection with a water rate study.
Okay.
To take a look at where we are now, where we should go based on our actual costs now, and whether there should be tiered rates and how to calculate them based on our actual costs, not some mythical number that the City of San Juan Capistrano did.
Now, you also indicated that you have to do a Prop 218 if you want to raise rates.
Yes.
But you don't have to do a Prop 218 to say if you wanted to get rid of your tiered water rates.
To adopt water rates, they must be correlated to your costs. So, to reduce water rates,
There's no need for a 218 here.
It wouldn't make sense.
no, I don't think you do need one.
Okay.
But I'm not gonna,
So
I'm
a
not
rate
gonna
study,
opine.
is going to be, it's going to be our primary thing to function on.
Yeah,
We want to make sure we avoid the garbage in, garbage out, make sure it's something that's straightforward.
Is there a study any study out that tells if you one company don't have tiered rates, how much more water people use?
I'm sure there are studies out there addressing the efficacy of tiered rates and how they affect consumption, yes. And we'll be happy to see if we can lay hands on one of those.
Thank you. If we bring another item before the board in regard to give me direction regarding a water rate study, I would think that it would be proper to look at both of those questions that Mr. Olaf Landsgaard brought up, looking at both of them. Because what we ultimately want to do is what we want to establish is the best price for the community and for the district, not gouging, but the best price for everybody concerned. So it would beg us to look at both of those and see which one fits properly.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll go to the public.
Going to a flat rate, it's going to say that the people that don't use very much water are going to start paying more. The people that use a lot of water are going to start paying less to average it all out. How are we going to deal with the people that you just took the sewer bill off the tax thing because people couldn't afford it, but yet you're gonna look into a flat rate that would raise these people's water bills up.
Flat rate will raise it.
It would?
How would you raise it if your base rate is whatever it is, $40 for water?
You can't live on the base rate, Bill. The base rate isn't enough money, so it's gotta go up to a min rate.
You just said flat rate.
A flat rate would go to a new rate that's higher than the base rate
It would be a
is
tiered
now.
rate then.
Huh?
Then that would be a tiered rate.
No, a flat rate would go higher than what your base rate is. So the person that's barely going out of the base rate, maybe into the first tier, their water bill's gonna go up. You get it?
I'll have to look at what you have to say. We'll see if the rate study doesn't
Because the
make
base
sense.
rate's not enough to pay for all the water.
That would clearly come out in the study, it would show that.
It is
That's gonna be part of the study.
Exactly. So you're gonna have another problem with the people that aren't paying very
But we
much.
can't raise rates because then we need a two-way fee. So that's a short answer.
Okay.
We'll do the rate study and go from there.
Okay.
Any other questions from the public? Items. Item A, discussing possible actions to remove/separate the Rosamond Community Service District Foundation from the district premises and use of facilities. Discussion.
I would look at separating it. The foundation is looking at it as a separate entity. They approach it, they claim total separation, yet they physically live here. They have their office here. Go back in their minutes, they discussed creating policies for the district people, things of that nature. That's not a separation in my eyes. I think we need to take a good sound look at it and have an actual separation. The foundation is not part of the water district. We should not be providing them office space. It's actual money we spend. Any other comments?
I guess the question would be, question for council, if we have a nonprofit that wants to avail themselves of our facilities, should they be treated any other nonprofit that wants to avail themselves of our facilities?
It would be appropriate to treat all nonprofits the same.
And is there, for example, in the current economic, people here, that they pay a fee for being here? But I do share Mr. Shingeldecker's concern, however, that I just was made aware that the name of the foundation is not the Rosamond Foundation, it's actually the RCSD Rosamond Foundation. And how we have to deal with that, but that's something that still lends itself for people to think that actually it's part of us when we're trying to distance ourselves. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Could you speak up, please?
The RCSD Foundation, as it's mentioned here on the agenda for the first time, as the RCSD Foundation, has been always referred to as the Rosamond Foundation. But I guess the formal title of it is the RCSD Rosamond Foundation. And under the leadership of the old board, they decided that 100% of all monies raised would have to come back to the RCSD. And that didn't sit well with most of the community members who volunteered to sit on that board. In the meantime, I think that still creates confusion as we agreed to separate ourselves from the RCSD Rosamond Foundation a meeting or two ago. And as such, we need to continue to inform the public that it may be named the RCSD Rosamond Foundation, but this board has determined that we're not maintaining any control, we're not maintaining any ties of that foundation, and that should be clear. I think that's what Mr. Shingeldecker says.
Right.
Go ahead.
The foundation, the Rosamond Foundation is a private entity. It is not part of the Rosamond Community Service District. And that's one of the things that's been emphasized. They've been separated. They are a private corporation, a nonprofit organization. This is the Rosamond Community Service District. We need to have a distinct separation.
At the same time, we don't have any control over telling them not to use the RCSD name anymore. Is that true?
That would be a matter I would need to look into, especially regarding the foundation, the establishment of the foundation, and whether it was done with the consent of the Services District Board at the time. lending their imprimatur of the use of the name. I suspect, I know what I will find, but I will look at it.
All right. I move we table this until she had a chance to look at that. Is that okay?
Well, what is
I had on my recommendation not to single out one group either and make it apply to all entities who wish to use the district facilities. And it begs, or I need to comment. This is a building that has been built with ratepayers' dollars and, or is being used for that purpose. Ratepayers, in my mind, are paying for the building, the use of the building. It's a public facility. And whenever we can, we try to accommodate those entities that wish to use it. In this last case, Mr. Gatton brought a good program here from the Small Business Institute with KEDC, and it served the community. And but it's I think if you look at the intent of the foundation, it too serves the community. And so I just recommend, number one, not to move them out of here, so all other entities also can utilize the facility if we can make that available. Because it you know, it's community's public building.
In that same aspect though, is there office space available for all the other public entities?
We don't have to make office space.
No.
There is not office space available for the foundation now. They don't use it. No one has come into the office to use office space. And when there was, I don't know that they ever used it. So, you know, if it's a meeting place that they would like to have, what you're saying is because they're the foundation that we don't care for, we need to get them out of here. And it doesn't make sense. I don't think they've done anything to injure the
No,
district.
not at all. What I'm looking at is, you've got the foundation. Do they not have a phone here?
They do.
Communication.
They
Okay.
do.
They're utilizing.
No, they don't.
Has that been moved?
Not, I think so.
Yes, but maybe we can give direction, maybe the best of the staff to make sure that if they have a phone or if they have an office, they get back to the same status of the.
And I think that's proper.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, the foundation does some good things, but when I'm looking at what was explained, they had a presence here, they were able to utilize the facility, not just the conference room, but I'm talking about office space and so on. If we're doing that for one organization, we have to do that for all. We can't just say, okay, because they were initially created by the RCSD, we're creating a problem ourselves.
Fair enough. If you want to make that stipulation, I think that's proper. They don't have that access, I think that's proper. But as far as a meeting facility?
Meeting in the facility, that's coordinated through you with all the organizations. That's not an issue, that's a coordination.
That, or allow me to continue to coordinate with various groups. I would appreciate that.
I'd like to speak to that issue if I could.
Go ahead.
And then maybe taking some of Greg's comments out. I think the foundation should be adjusted to do the same thing the school district did. The purpose of the foundation was to allow people to donate money, companies to donate money, and get a receipt from it from Rosamond Community Services District for projects that Rosamond Community Services District did. And we didn't set it up the way I think we should have, looking back now. The school district has a facilities foundation. The directors of that facilities foundation are the school board. And then they have an oversight committee that school board responds to. And all of the gifts and so on pass through that facilities foundation. The board decides how it will be used. The facility, the oversight committee reviews that and tells the board and gives insight into the board. That's what we should have set up. Instead of calling it the Rosamond Community Foundation, should have been Rosamond Facilities Foundation. That may have been made real simple. And the school board controls that foundation. There's an oversight committee that gives advice to the school.
It's not a bad idea, but the fact is that I served on the school board for 5 years, and we never had a foundation meeting with the school board in those 5 years.
That's your problem.
We had an oversight committee. We had an oversight committee that had to deal with Prop 39.
That's your problem. That's what they have.
Prop 39 has to deal with.
That's what they have.
You're
That's
mixing
the way it's
terms
set
up.
up.
Oversight has to deal with the Prop 39 monies that we pass. You want to pass a bond by 55%.
Go talk to the superintendent. There's an oversight committee for the facility.
Mr. Landsgaard has the floor.
The oversight committee for a school board, we still have the oversight committee. If you're interested in serving on that, you can always let Mr. Weinstein know that. The oversight committee is there to make sure the funds are spent not on salaries, but on building. For example, Rosamond Elementary, the new elementary school gets built. All those funds, money that we passed back last year, November 14th, 56% of people said, yes, we want to extend our bonds. That's going to be governed by an oversight committee. Will continue to be governed by an oversight committee. And that's the oversight committee that we had when I was on the school board, and continues to exist with the current school board.
Doesn't the foundation's funds go for the park? It all goes to that, right?
Yes.
Mr. Wood, please.
I'd like to comment on this. My name is Greg Wood, and I am the president of the Rosamond Foundation. And actually, the actual name of it is the Rosamond Community Services District Foundation. And it is a 501c3 that was created by this very board in this very room back in 2007. And you know, you sat here and you heard a lot of good ideas come up from this gentleman over here, talking about skate parks and funding for this and funding for that. And we also talked about this lady from the Rosamond Little League about funding for this and funding for that. And coming to this board, and we sat there and heard those same arguments back in 2000, 1999, 2001, 2002, 2003, when we opened United Street Park debt-free. But we could not get any donations. The only donation we were able to get at that time was to have Best and Krieger donate their legal services and Boyle Engineering donate their engineering services to build the park. We had to pay for the construction of it. Nobody is going to write a check to this agency if they can't write the money off. That is why the 501c3 was created and written up legally by Best and Krieger, one of the finest law firms in the state of California. And it was for that purpose that all 5 board members were members of the foundation board. Whether you attend or not, doesn't matter. We held our meetings in here. There was never a violation of the Brown Act because we did not make decisions as far as the RCSD board is concerned. We talked about park issues. We talked about needs. We strategized on how we were going to approach corporations to raise money and to see if we can get donations. We looked for grants, whatever we could do. The only thing that would happen is that our general manager here, as an example, came to the foundation board and said, we need a pool heater. We saw if we had the funds. We came back to this board and we made it, as a board, we just voted to whether we would request the pool heater from the foundation. And then the foundation provided the money for it. That was just one example. When you guys said that we wanted to keep all the money, what happened was in March of 2011, one member of the foundation board wanted to take all of the money that we had collected and disperse it among the other 501c3s in the community. And that was a good idea. That's what he wanted to do. He brought it to the board. It was voted down by the majority of the board. We decided that the reason the foundation, and it's in the bylaws if you read it, was to raise money for a non-funded entity, Parks and Recreation for the Rosamond Community Services District. that money that we raised, we were hoping that we could get enough money coming in through grants and through donations to where every bit of the O&M cost could have been paid for by the foundation. And therefore, all of your discretionary funds could have gone back to pay back the loans. By distancing yourself from the foundation, you are killing the goose with the golden egg. Because this is the one entity that can take the donations, businesses can write it off, and it can help the financial situation of the parks in this community. At this time, Director MacKay and Dennis Shingledecker, you are still officers on the foundation board. You were voted in as secretary and treasurer. And you remain so until you resign, and then at that time we'll vote somebody else in. I'm just saying is that, you know, I don't know what the reason is to single out the foundation, but it seems like the foundation's been under attack. And, you know, I thought we need to work together. And I used to sit on this board, and I want to work with this agency because I only care about one thing. And that's all I've cared about for 15 years while I sat on this board. Doing what's best for this community. Making decisions that I felt was best for this community. And that I want to be a team and I want to work together. Because we've got a big hole to dig ourselves out of. And we're not going to do it if every time we turn around we're trying to fight for our survival. Thank you. Thank you. Item B, discussion regarding the water rate structure.
We just had a long discussion on that. I move that we table that until we come back with the rate study.
It's been moved and seconded to table item B. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I vote. Item C.
Mr. President, can we stop? Make a motion a second on that?
Moved. I'll second it.
Thank you.
Move to item C, discussion regarding the preparation of a letter to Congressman Kevin McCarthy regarding this delisting the Delta smelt as an endangered species.
Mr. President, there was a... Did you
Yeah, my only comment on this is this was a future agenda item. We placed it on there for direction. If the board wishes a letter to be technical or general in its writing.
I would like to be general in one sense, but specific enough to let them know. For example, there was an article about the press on Monday indicating that they had 40 places to collect the Delta smelt this last time out, and they collected one fish in 40 places. That needs to be addressed. In other words, the article said, well, it's the drought that's causing it, even though they've made 1 million acres of farmland in the San Joaquin Valley fallow to run the water down there so they would have fish there. The fish aren't there. That needs to be pointed out, and the spin that's in the paper probably is not the spin that I would take on it. I would ask you to take a different spin, and that is Delta smelt doesn't, they claim that in the newspaper article that they're native to California. I don't think that's the case. That needs to be corrected. And then number one, and number two, delisting them as an endangered species might be is something that needs to be done. Number one, obviously, maybe it's not obvious, but some other things need to be looked at. I'm sure there's got to be something that says, you know, they might thrive in this environment and they're not going to die off. I mean, obviously, taking up a whole delta for one fish is not wise, but if you can have a place for those fish to go and breed and continue, they can do that without fallowing 1 million acres of farmland.
I think you and I are probably on the same point on this issue, and I think the direction that you've given me is partially general and partially technical, and I will do additional research. In fact, I started already on that issue, and it's they tried not to list it to begin with. And
so we need to go back and look at it. And then I did hand Lizette a copy of a letter from Abundant Harvest Organics from April 17, 18. If you just include that in your letter as to what some of the organic farmers are dealing with, you know, if you could read that also. attach that to a letter to Congressman McCarthy and say, this is some of the concerns, what's going on, this is what we're up against, and we need to get back to common sense, we need to get back to people first, and putting people back to work. This 1 million acres of farmland has been fallow, and there's a lot of jobs that are missing now. We're getting our blueberries from Chile, we should be getting blueberries from the San Joaquin Valley, things like that.
Okay, I'll entertain the motion that we table item C until Mr. Perez gets back with us with the letter. Mr. Shingledecker, makes a motion. Do I have a second?
That was a request for direction, so you can act on it.
Yeah.
And then I'll bring the letter back for your approval.
Okay. We'll just, go ahead, try it.
If the moving party wants to change his motion to direct the general manager to prepare the letter, that would be appropriate based on the current tenor of the meeting.
Mr. MacKay, real quick, one question. How much water are we talking affects us from getting, from us getting this water for the protection of a delta smelt?
Do you know that, Steve?
What are we talking about?
How much
water are they protecting? How much water are they storing?
I think it was 239,000 acre feet.
Went so much it went up to the sea too?
That's crazy.
That's why we're trying to get it changed. That's crazy.
Yeah, if they got it changed quickly, then the other opportunity would be maybe to get some. We could run this way and store it.
Go to the Great Lakes and get the delta smelt, because they're abundant in the Great Lakes.
Or they're up there in the Great Lakes.
They're good on the Barbie.
Okay.
Hearing none, we'll move to direct the staff to write a letter to Congressman Kevin McCarthy to delist the delta smelt as from the endangered species. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0.
How much time is this going to take the staff to do, write a letter about delta smelts?
I think our manager is probably pretty quick-witted, we'll get it done in a couple hours.
Now, let me just answer your question, because I think what you're saying is that we're wasting our time.
Yes, yeah, yes.
The thousands of acres feet that are being flushed down the river to change the temperature of the river to make it conducive for the delta smelt to survive is what we're dealing with. Okay, 239,000 acre feet of water is going out into the ocean. That's water that the farmers can't use. It's going to cost your food bill to go up. It's going to cost the district here. We can't get that water to provide for you. It's being wasted for a delta smelt that is not indigenous to California. It was imported.
You're not wasting your time.
Is the intent of this letter just for you as the board to send it to Senator McCarthy, or are you going to turn this into a petition and give us an opportunity to sign it so you have more backing on it?
Yeah, I would say petition.
We'll wait until the manager brings the letter to us, and then we'll go with it from there.
Would you like an online petition, or you want me to sign?
You can do it on change.org, and it's simple to set up.
There already is one. There's already one. There's already a petition on change.org.
Oh, there is?
Yeah.
But Tom, can you put it on our website?
I'll discuss it with the manager, we'll go from there.
Okay. We'll get our proposed letter.
Why just Mr. McCarthy? How about Ms. Feinstein and Boxer? I know it's a waste of time for them too, but let them know.
Send the same letter to them as well. The separate letter, one that goes to Kevin. Kevin's got a little more clout than we do right now, so it's a good idea to use it.
Oh, it has.
Actually, I think it might be best send it to the entire California delegation in that manner.
One at a time, Syria. Okay.
Okay.
It moves us to item D, discussion and possible action to adopt resolution 2015-6 regarding implementing stage 3 of the ordinance 2009-1, the Water Conservation No Waste Program. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you that we have new copies of the resolution that were here. There was some items that were changed in it. It's the new resolution is on the website, and we have copies of it here. And one of the things on the second page, the water conservation stage 3 was changed, and the new language is in there. And then on item 4, there was figures that were talked about in item 4 that were not in the resolution, so the language was struck. So we have this new resolution that's here, and this resolution deals with establishing water conservation for the district. As most of you know, the governor has mandated that we have another reduction in the usage of our water. And we're asking the people of the district to curtail their use of water. And we're going to ask you on certain days and at certain times to water. Okay, so that's what this resolution is about. We're going to a third stage of water conservation.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. President. I might start off with apologizing to the community because there was an error in the information that initially went out. And there was a couple that had called me late this afternoon, brought it to my attention, and we have corrected that, and we found that it was our mistake. It was not done maliciously. It was done by mistake. It was a word product that was the actual wrong version of the ordinance that was, of the ordinance that was placed into this action item. So for that, I apologize, and just assure you that we have corrected it, and it's corrected on the website. It was before the meeting, and it's corrected in the version that the board will be taking action on this evening. But I might point out that the emergency regulations proposed by the state require a statewide aggregate of a 25% reduction. It is going to be in effect through the 28th of February 2016 until the end of next February, where it'll be probably adjusted, either taking it away if we get a wet winter or extending it. And at this point, some of the highlights are some of the restrictions. Restaurants not being able to serve drinking water unless you request it. But it's not just restaurants, it goes to hotels, requiring them to notice you that if you don't want your linens laundered, you don't have to have them laundered daily. It goes into effect immediately, and all commercial and industrial properties not served by water supplier meeting the requirements of the Water Code shall either limit their outdoor irrigation, their ornamental landscapes or turf with potable use to no more than 2 days a week. But that's going to extend to everybody in the community to 2 days a week. The taking of any action prohibited in Section A, or the failure to take any action by a water supplier or a person that is requested to adhere to these rules could be subject to civil or criminal penalties as an infraction, punishable by a fine up to $500 for each day in which the violation occurs. However, to the public agencies that are not taking this seriously and not meeting those requirements, we could be fined up to $10,000 a day. So we're encouraging everybody to take a look at these. Our agency will be out there and reminding people that they may be watering on a wrong day or something. We're going to take an enforcement action. If you get a notice that you're doing it wrong, don't stress. We're not going to take away your house or anything. We're just going to notify you how to do it right. so we can achieve these goals. We have to report on a monthly basis, so they're going to be watching us and how we're doing in response to these regulations each month. So it's incumbent on us to request of you to please tell your neighbors, tell your friends, anybody that's using water to try to conserve as best as possible. Look at the regulations online, the ones that are posted on the website. The Stage 3 regulations will be in effect. The Stage 2 will stay in effect. So all the Stage 3, the new regulations, 2 days a week watering, 25 minutes maximum a day. And just all I can say is help us help this bad situation along.
You're talking like the Missouri in effect.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Because they didn't vote on it. That's right.
They haven't, but if they do, is what I mean. It's a requirement by the state. So I'm anticipating that the board is going to look at that way. But I might say the aggregate is 25%. Based on our water records, our gallons per capita a day use is 140 gallons per person each day. That's our average. What that does is we fall into paragraph 8, where it reads each urban water supplier whose average July through September of 2014 was between 130 and 169 shall reduce its total water usage by 28%. So for our community, that is going to be a 28% requirement for us to reduce. But the aggregate in the state, they're looking for a 25. I could go on, but I believe that the highlights in here are to promote the conservation of the water until we get some relief from the weather.
So what about dust abatement on solar farms and windmills and gold mines? Do they still get to waste the water?
Well, if it's not in our district or being drawn from our district, we can't police it.
But if it's from like a Mojave district, I mean, so they don't count under that 25% for the whole statewide?
Every water agency in the state is under this mandate.
Okay, but they still allow all these solar farms to come in Rosamond area, or in our side of the desert?
If we're mitigating today, if somebody comes in to mitigate their dust, they're going to have to find their water somewhere else because we can't give that water to them for mitigation.
Okay, so if they have a contract in place already, then they still get the water that they...
For that purpose, I don't believe so. I'm going to have to talk to council about that.
Why is this the only county, can I ask, why is this the only county where, for desert landscaping, that other counties help pay to change over the land, the property, to desert, and out here, I've checked, they don't do that.
This is not actually a county-driven issue. We're a community service district. It's an unincorporated area, number one. Number two, we don't have the finances in our district to subsidize that type of activity. However, the governor did say that he was putting money aside for those types of services, for lawn buyback, which would go to presumably to desertscape type activities. Until we see that type of money available to us, can we offer that type of reimbursement?
But if you can find grants to do diamond, then why can't we find grants to help the people out here to change their landscape?
Actually, the wind farms paid for that.
Pardon?
The wind farms paid for that.
They did? Alright. So...
Well, the whole thing is grants are great, and grants would be wonderful if we could get those for the purposes that we want. It takes a lot of time to go after a grant, but grants generally come with a match for them. That means we have to either come up with 50 to 75%, in some cases maybe 25% of the overall cost. Looking at this whole situation, what happens when there's a water reduction and we're asking you to reduce 28%? That immediately cuts 28% from our budget because we're not selling that water any longer. So all of the things that we have planned for, we have to start looking for additional revenues. So that revenue is going to be very tight. So for us to go to do buybacks to achieve this, although it would be commendable, we would love to do it if we had the revenue, we can't do it without help from the state and the grants. And I monitor the grants every single day.
Can I ask you a question? West Park's putting in, the school's putting in all that grass. And so that's gonna hurt the district, really, when they use that much more water on that grass.
If they plant that grass before we get to them. I just learned exactly what they were gonna put in, whether it was gonna be the phony grass or sod. I was told sod. And that's in the back of my mind right now to write that letter to the superintendent to advise them that we are in a drought and that we have to sit and coordinate that when they put that in. So they don't put it in, we cut off water and it dies. That wouldn't be worth it. They're putting in a lot of work. We have not been consulted as to what they were going to put in, but now that I know, I will be contacting them.
As far as the timing goes on this particular resolution, two things. One is you said you caught it, some more language that needed to be corrected in the resolution, and you just presented it to us tonight. Is that correct?
Correct.
So it really doesn't come within the Brown Act as far as us having had a chance to review it, or the public for sending it to us. The other thing is, I'm looking at the stuff you did provide in background. It says a number of things that call to mind questions. It says we have to have a certificate of compliance. I guess we do. Is that right?
In which part?
The emergency regulatory action is effective March 27th and will expire on December 23rd, 2015. The certificate of compliance for this action is due no later than December 22nd, 2015. Signed by Richard L. Smith, Senior Attorney for the Office of Administrative Law. So it doesn't sound like we're in a great rush. And basically, we are still within the rainy season. Northern California should be getting right with a couple of rainstorms right now. The other thing I noticed that they call this, number 45 says the present year is critically dry, and that's out of the three choices: wet, dry, and critically dry. It's the worst one we can have. Normal, dry, or critically dry. Below normal, dry, or critically dry years, the three worst type of years we have. This is a critically dry year again, although we know we received a little more rain, I think in February and December, than we did last year, for example. That's one of the other questions I have. The other question is, if indeed the school needs to get their stuff in the ground, I understand they're going to start watering it June 1st. I certainly want to jeopardize the Little League fields that will be available to them. That's the solution to having Rosamond Elementary building the new school there, taking away the fields that they practice on. Then we'll have the fields back to use, I believe, by August 1st. So I hope it's not critical to move on that at this time. I think we've got to table after June 1st and give them a chance to get in the grass. In the bigger picture,
excuse me, let me understand what you said. You want them to plant the grass first?
I do.
Okay. I want to clarify something too. You mentioned December 15th, 2015.
Yes, that's the one.
That's for. Pardon? That's for that is not an urban water supplier.
Right.
And we are an urban water supplier.
That's another thing. Where's the definition of urban water supplier? We're not exactly downtown LA.
Anyone that serves 3,000 acre feet or more, we do.
We're just
or has 3,000 connections, we do.
Or has.
So we are.
And on that issue of the 3,000 acre feet, though, I want to kind of just give us a chance to step back and take a deep breath. We have to cut our well consumption down from 3,000 acre feet to 600 acre feet in the next 3 years. Is that right?
No.
We have 5 years to do that. How soon do we have to do that?
What'll happen as soon as the adjudication is determined and done, beginning the January following that action, we will begin the adjudication ramp down. For 2 years, you can pump average your pump away.
The 3,000.
Right. For 2 years. Then you start a ramp down over a 5-year period, presumably reducing your water pumping by 20% each year, till you total your ramp down to the 600.
In the meantime, we have to find alternate sources, which have to come.
Absolutely.
Either the water bank, or we could buy a farmer's share, if they have so many acre feet.
Correct.
And it occurs to me that the school district is part of the adjudication, and they are awarded so many acre feet for the wells they have in the high school, for example. It occurs to me that perhaps when we talk to them, we should be talking about maybe getting some purple water out to them, number one, so they can water that whole field with that. That would be taking no water at all. Number two, in the meantime, if we're going to work with them, maybe they could sell us their allocation that they're getting from the adjudication, or at least trade it to us at a favorable amount so that we don't turn off their water. They have the ability to trade through that in hardship times.
Well, what you don't understand is they weren't involved in the adjudication, and until we started the discussions of the adjudication when I got here, they were not represented. Knowing that we were going to have to provide them water, I stood in court and argued for an allocation for the 10 entities that we were going to take in, because I knew that we were going to have a finite amount of water to maintain what we had, but then we were going to take on another 1,247 connections. So I argued that, and we are discussing up to this point as of yesterday, and it's getting done, resolved, in the prove-up. They have agreed to allow them, all 10 of them, or the ones that signed on to the stipulated agreement, to come into the adjudication, and they offered them 300 acre feet. Of that, about 202 or 206 acre feet would be allocated to the high school because they're the highest equivalent connections. They otherwise would have no water to pump at all. So the water that we have gotten for them will help keep costs of water down because we won't have to buy that additional water supply for them. So it helps to mitigate those costs. They won't have any water to sell. Their water, in fact, the reason that they have to consolidate is because it's tainted with arsenic. And they have to blend, and they go in and out of violation, and that's why they're consolidated.
And looking at the big picture again, we just heard on the wastewater plans, the various ones running. We have a line that stops in Patterson now, before the freeway.
After.
It goes under the freeway already. So they only have roughly a mile to go from there to West Park.
The park site to the school, or to the school site, about 1.2 to 1.25 million to the park.
To the further side.
That's in dollars.
In dollars, okay. And the question is, have you approached the school on that issue, and have you explained to them that, first of all, there's a water problem, they need to get their stuff in the ground early, and are they putting purple piping? You should be putting purple piping regardless.
Well, I agree, but we weren't talking about purple pipe, now we're on purple pipe.
Well, it's the big picture. You're talking about not having a field for that brand new field because we won't have the water. They won't have the right to have the water. And I think we got to figure out a way to get the water to them, especially since we have purple water.
But when you're looking at the cost right now, we have to be able to budget that. We can't just pull that money out and put in a project for that kind of money. We can go out and borrow money, but right now, when everything's so tight, it wasn't on the radar. We certainly were not even permitted yet. And I do know that as soon as we can start seeing the daylight for receiving that permit, I'll be out there encouraging everybody to get on board with that. Everybody meaning all those commercial uses, including the school. The school is the only one that hasn't come on board as of yet. They have a little bit different consideration than some of the other public entities, and they'll work through that, I'm sure. And I know that they do want to mitigate their water costs also.
Is there anything to prevent them from putting purple tertiary water on a school site?
I don't believe so.
But my hope would be, or my fellow directors would concur, you could get on that, make communications right away with the school and say, hey, here's what we're facing, number one. And number two, there's a line that's only a mile and a half away, and that's gonna cost $1.2 million to get it there. But we need to start looking for solutions, because the guy over the school district, he's a wizard when it comes to numbers. If anybody can figure out how to get the money there, he would be. So include him in the conversation now, and if there isn't any way to get the money, at least we'll know for disrespect we can. But we should be trying right away.
Well, like I said, I just learned of what they were going to put in there because they didn't consult with us at all. And
He's presented at RMAC, he's been everywhere, everybody knows that he's going to be.
I haven't been at RMAC. They haven't that phone works real well between Jeff and I, and we talk regularly on other issues. I've never had that opportunity. That's very easy for two guys that work businesses like this to have that discussion. But because I learned of it, we can't get it in tomorrow, but we can start the conversation, and that's what I said. But I just learned about it, and because I learned what they're going to put in there, I will have that conversation.
Okay, and if we need to do something as far as an ordinance going for new construction, whether it's, and there are customer of ours, whether it's the school district or somebody else, they should be installing purple pipe. And on the Diamond Street project, again, purple pipe. That maybe as an ordinance we should look at, council, that we could have later on that says if you're going to construct something new on a large scale basis, whether it's a Diamond Street improvement or a park, that they should have a plan for purple pipe.
We are pretty far afield on our topic right now. Right now, we're looking at this resolution, so that would be a potential future agenda item that you requested at the end of the meeting, but we should circle back now to the agendized item before you.
What I'd like to do is, I'd like to entertain a motion to table this resolution and give people a chance to look at it and put it on the next.
Can I say one thing before you do that, though? I just, for my own curiosity.
Thank you for waiting.
That's fine. I enjoy the conversation. The board is planning to go to stage 3, correct? Okay. Has the state of California gone to stage 3? Or are they still, has it been mandated? As of this moment, or well, I guess it would be the next meeting now since it didn't, is there any potential for them to go to stage 3, or are you doing this preemptively as a way to kind of be the shining star of California that we're going to save water?
These are requirements directed by an executive order of the governor. They
Right.
are required,
But the requirement's a reduction, correct?
the requirements are a reduction, yes.
Okay. At the last meeting, you said that we had already reduced our water consumption by a set amount. For the life of me, can't remember what it was.
Well, we have done since last August to January, we did a 5.1% reduction.
Okay.
We were trying to achieve a 10 in the year, so we were on track on our reduction there.
But during that time, we were under stage 2, correct?
Correct.
Was there any enforcement of stage 2?
No.
Will there be any enforcement of stage 2 prior to this stage 3 being enacted?
I take it back. There was enforcement to the point that we were putting cards on to people's doorsteps and door hangers that they were violating the stage 2.
And was there any recourse to that? Did they change?
No, we didn't cite anybody.
But did they change their actions though?
That I can't tell you.
Okay, see, because I know on my trip here from West Park, I passed at least 3 houses before 8 o'clock on a Tuesday with their sprinklers blowing out into the street. So I'm all for water conservation. That's not what I'm getting at. I would love to conserve water. I just think that we're being a little hasty in jumping to stage 3 before we do enforcement of stage 2.
We are not. We have to do this because we have to comply to a 28% reduction. The longer we wait, the worse it's going to be in our...
No, and I understand that. But what I'm saying is that if we're already under restrictions and nobody's enforcing those restrictions, then what's to make people want to change their actions? I mean, I know as a child, if I could get a cookie, I'd take a cookie every time until my mom slapped me in the hand. So if these people have been sprinkling and irrigating their lawns and washing their cars and just dropping the hose and letting it go down the drain without any enforcement now,
There's going to be enforcement, they're going to find them.
well, that's fine, but that doesn't mean we have to go to stage 3. That means that we should do enforcement of stage 2 first.
Actually, let me explain that. You got a good point.
I'm just saying.
I understand your analogy, and I appreciate it. However, what you have to appreciate is our requirement by that executive order. We're required to move. A stage 3 is our plan that was mandated by the state for this agency to establish. This whole conservation, stage 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah.
But because they had done that, the sooner we get on this, the better chances we are to achieve that and not get fined.
Right.
I appreciate the fact that we could go and enforce and then hold off on stage 3. Stage 3 is just going to help us achieve what we have to achieve
Right.
and
I don't
not
want you
get
guys
fined.
wasting your time doing all this if it's not going to have any benefit. I mean, you can sit here and we can talk about being in stage 3 with a blue in the face, and I'm pretty sure everybody in this room will abide by it. But in a town of 18,000, this 40-some people is not going to make a difference.
So I
and
agree with you.
My issue is my father-in-law here. They have reduced their water consumption quite a lot prior to this. And he's a law-abiding citizen. He does everything.
We called you, by the way.
Yeah, he's the one that called you. They do everything by the book, you know. But his neighbor, 3 times a day, every day, he's sitting there blowing all over his yard, everywhere. I mean, like I said, I'm not one to try to. I'm not trying to say don't do it. I'm just saying that there's other ways that we can get to it before we do this and waste people's time with having to do this. And then these people are punished while everybody else in the town just goes about doing what they want to do.
Part of your point. Well, no, that wasn't the point.
Right?
Yeah. It will do it, but that wasn't the point I wanted to make. The point I wanted to make, if this board adopts a stage 3 as soon as possible, we will be out there from this point forward anyway. Enforcing.
Okay.
So we
That's
can
cool.
enforce the stage 2 until they adopt 3, and then we'll continue right into 3. Because your points are well taken, because the stage 2, everybody knows 3's coming, and
Right.
because of a
4's
delay.
a lot worse.
We're going to be out there reminding
4
people.
was the mistake that was on the internet. Just to give you an idea, the mistake that was put up on the internet, that's stage 4. So no washing cars, period. Only shrubs and trees.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go there. You know what the worst part is? It doesn't have any effect on me technically. 'Cause I have well water. I live on a community well of 16 people, but it's not for me. You know, I don't know. I don't think. I think there's ways that we can get around this. If stage 3 means enforcement of stage 2 and stage 3, I'm all for it. I don't have a problem with it. But don't slap the hand of the people that are here when it's their neighbors that are doing it. You know, that's my only thing.
But the whole thing right now, and you know this as well as I do, we don't know who's doing it today or anybody in here that's violating. It's my assumption that most people that are here are people that are following the way that the stage 2 was designed.
That's why we're here.
Exactly.
And I would be the same way, because we've got dead grass everywhere.
Right.
And,
you know, people paid a lot of money for that. Now they're going to see it go down the drain because their neighbor doesn't care.
and it's the whole situation is unfortunate. It's a force majeure is
Right.
what it's a God-created issue.
Yeah,
and
it's the actions of a few having an effect on the neighbor.
And
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
It does smell.
I appreciate it.
Not a problem. Yeah. Thank you, gentlemen.
Young lady in the back.
I wanted to point out that I moved here in August, and coming out to Rosamond, there's not a whole lot of incentive as a person that I came from Hawaii, but there's not a whole lot of incentive to come out to Rosamond as opposed to Lancaster, other than the housing being a little bit less expensive. But with the issue that we're having with water conservation, it seems like wouldn't it be a little bit better to look into those grants for the lawn buybacks as opposed to worrying about a fine that you might get? It might make those numbers that you're trying to reach a little bit easier, and it'll still make Rosamond look attractive to people coming in. Because if the lawns are dying and everything doesn't look good, I don't want to live in a neighborhood that is just a bunch of dying lawns and everything looks like no one cares. So if that's going to affect the housing market, because there's not a whole lot of incentive to come to Rosamond in the first place, property values are something that I'm worried about, because I'm wondering, should I put my house on the market and take off from Rosamond before everything looks like crap? Or should I try to stick around and see if things are gonna get better? But those lawn buyback programs, you know, if there was landscaping companies that, you know, could possibly get on board to kind of offset the price for homeowners that can't afford it on their own, wouldn't it be better to do that to get your numbers instead of worrying about the fine later?
I have a question that I can follow up on. I understand that the AVEC meeting, Ed, you can explain what they're offering over there?
They're offering $1 a square foot on the turf, the artificial turf.
The artificial turf.
You speak
So the-
up, we can't hear you. What'd you say, AVEC?
I was asked a question, AVAC, Antelope Valley East Kern Water District, which is a state water agency that provides water. They are helping out the customers in the Los Angeles area. They have they're buying what they call dollars for turf, all right? They buy, you take your grass out and you put in artificial lawn. They will help you by providing $1 a square foot off the cost of the artificial turf that you're buying.
Is that the only program available?
I don't know, that's just one that I just heard about.
My understanding is that if we put up $1, they'll put up $1. Am I right about that? They're matching, we're not limited to Lake County with AVEC, it's the Antelope Valley East Kern Water Agency. I thought Charlie Laughlin earlier, I don't know if he's here now, but certainly he represented our area before, as does Keith Dias. And if they're going to offer it up, they just can't offer it up to LA County. They should be offering it up to us as well. But we have to take some money out of our budget to do that. We obviously haven't thought about that. But that might be something, if your people are interested in doing that, maybe we can pursue that.
Yeah, I definitely think that, I mean, I'm looking at my whole yard full of grass that I bought in August, and it's a lot of grass. I can't convert all of that over right away, but I feel guilty every time I turn my sprinklers on, because I know that, you know, I shouldn't be watering this grass. But if I let it die, my house is gonna look significantly different. And it's going to affect my community, my neighborhood, and it's gonna affect people potentially coming into the area, which would make my house worth less money all the way around. So that's my biggest concern is, you know, can my neighbors, can I find these programs that will, you know, change things into desert state? Because I think it's a bigger issue than, you know, well, it would be nice to do the buyback thing, but we just can't do it.
I guess my question is twofold. With respect to what she's saying, can we put some budget money up and say, AVEC, we're going to put up X dollars, because you're going to max our money for our people to use to turn their either into a artificial lawn or a desert scape?
The AVEC lawn buyback program is proportional to the amount of water you buy from them. They rebate back to you for that purpose. We're only buying about 75 acre-feet a year from them now, because we're trying to save the ratepayers money at $90 an acre-foot versus $450 an acre.
Didn't you say though that the grants are hard to get, hard to come by? Didn't you say that earlier?
Right now,
That's what he did say.
grants are very hard to get. There's a lot of grants out there, but qualifying for those grants, they want you to become regional in your approach. And if we could hook up with Lancaster or Mojave, which regionally isn't feasible because we don't have connecting systems, so it makes it extremely hard. But what we can do is stay on top of the governor's revenues that he's putting aside for that and go after those revenues. And as soon as we can get some of those revenues in here, we can start doing that program.
I'm new to the area, and last Saturday we're out doing our lawn, meeting our neighbors, 3 houses down. He's torn up all the grass, and he did desert scape. And so we went down and said, wow, that really looks good. He did it by himself, and he did it in one day. Because they have limited amount of grass they're allowed to put because of the water, okay? I don't know what program it was, and I walked in here today to find out what it was, and they said, we don't know of any, but he got, I believe what you were talking about, AVAC, and he said it was a lot of paperwork, but he got $1 per square foot. He said it cost me $500 to do it, and his reimbursement was $500. He did it just last Saturday, so there are things out there.
We need to get his name.
I'm gonna find out what it was, because I just assumed
I
it
need
was,
to talk to you.
I'm new here, so I just assumed it was done through here, and I came in to ask about it, and he goes, no, we don't have any programs like that. I'm gonna go back and talk to him, because we haven't put our backyards in, there's a lot of new homeowners, and everybody's talking about, let's do zero-scape, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you were saying we were at 100, my name's Rob Stamps, I'm a Rosamond resident. You were saying we're at 140 gallons aggregate per family?
Per capita.
Okay. It's like my son-in-law was saying, okay, you've got people out there that are watering 3 times a day, 7 days a week, okay? That's why your number's up there, okay? That's why it's there. I know that's why it's there. I know when you mandated last summer, I believe it was in July, for us to go to the every other day odd even houses for watering, okay? I, for one, and I know some of the other residents in Rosamond, tried to adhere to that, or have been adherent to that, okay? And not to see, like my son-in-law was saying, about stage 2 not being gone after. That's what's causing a lot of the problem. And just to go to stage 3, I just don't see why because I think we can get that number down below that, even that 130, if we just go in there and go after stage 2 before we go to stage 3.
We don't have the time to take that chance, however.
Okay. Well, with that, okay, because I went on the site this morning when I went to work and brought up your 2009 ordinance, okay, which basically says that we went to this stage 2 last fall, okay? And then I went to Palmdale and Lancaster, and they don't have anything, okay? They're residents, and we're under the same basin, we're in the same aquifers, correct? Okay, water all comes from the same spot, okay? But yet these people are able to water 7 days a week, okay, within a certain amount of time. I got their ordinances right here, okay? And I don't understand why Rosamond has to save California, okay?
Well, I will say this. I can't answer for another city. I noticed that same thing occurring in the city of Bakersfield. They weren't adhering to that.
It's like
my
we're the only
daughter
ones
never
that
had
do
it. My daughter never had anyone here followed it, but some people didn't.
Right.
And and who would have thought we were going to go into another dry year again?
Right.
But here we are, and it's time to now. We have to step our enforcement efforts up because you're on point.
Right.
But what's going to happen when we get somebody hurt for getting in a confrontation? If they're going to be doing water, what I'm going to have my people do is call the sheriff and cite them for us, and we'll have an administrative cite code that they can do that for us. But our people aren't cops.
We have a
Okay,
number where you
now,
can, we have a number where you can do a anonymous turn in.
Turn in your neighbor.
Neighbor on neighbor
As
again.
long as it's anonymous.
Come on. Yeah. So also, you know, we
don't need police.
right. Right. We don't need that. Yeah, because like my son-in-law was saying earlier, we don't need to be turning neighbor against neighbor. Okay, that's going to be really ugly. Okay, but what I'd like to say is, I know that there was a 2008 water table analysis done. Is that the last one that was done?
I'm sorry?
2008?
I'm sorry.
When they adjudicated the water basin, did they figure out what the water levels were?
Right.
Yes.
What year was that?
They started the adjudication in 99.
70, well,
98,
70, I saw back as far as like 1975,
Hey,
1978.
that kept track of a lot of those things.
Okay, but the latest one I could find online was 2008. I couldn't find anything any later than that. So we don't even know, we're not like the rest of California. I mean, I know a lot of California has aquifers all up and down the state. Okay, but we have aquifers that are underneath Rosamond. And the biggest ones, according to that 2008 analysis, are under the lake beds out there in Edmonds still. You know, anywhere from 300 feet to 1,000 feet deep in places wherever the water travels from the mountains. But is there been another analysis that you know of, or going to be one? For all we know, we're getting ready to overflow. We don't know how much water is down there.
The USGS does regular water studies, and if you go on their website, you'll probably find those types of studies that you're looking for.
Right.
I know that they supported the IRWIM in the Antelope Valley with studies for the IRWIM, the Integrated Water Management Plan for the Antelope Valley. You could look in there also. It may give you that information, because I think they sought the USGS and all their information for their studies.
Maybe if they were to, well, actually they already know how to do it, but we've got a big body of, ocean water out there that can be purified. So we're really not in that much of a water crisis, because we're spending money on everything else.
We're in an extreme water crisis when it comes to looking at desalinization, because the cost to do so in the energy is so high that what you're paying $90, or we're paying $90 an acre foot to pump out of the ground right now, would probably be about $3,000 or $4,000 an acre foot. Then you would have to do a pipeline from the coast to get it here in order to accomplish the task.
That's what they did originally through that whole thing, just like they moved with the China syndrome, but it was for real. When Mom piped in all that water to make Los Angeles.
It may come to that one day, but I think we're ways off on that because of the cost.
Well, our government spends money on everything.
I just got one more thing, and I'll be quiet. I noticed in the stage 3, once you go to stage 3, if you go to stage 3, okay, that watering of automobiles is also in there. Okay, I myself, I don't know about anybody else, can take it to a car wash. I don't need to water that. I'd rather have the extra day for my lawn, because right now at 3 days, it's suffering within 25 minutes. Okay, if you go to that 2-day, for me, it's Sunday and then no water till Thursday. That's 3 days. And when July comes and it's 110 degrees out there, it's not going to make it. So
and I would encourage
I'd rather do away with the automobile thing and give me my extra day, to water my plants and shrubs and lawn and stuff.
Well, I would encourage people to do that, just that, because the water that they use at the at the car washes are supposed to be recirculated.
It's a lot better
How
for
much
your car.
do we have as far as modifying resolution, as far as you said, no washing a car, but you get a 3rd day.
This is consistent with the previously adopted structure as mandated by the state. That you are simply implementing the provisions that were previously adopted and declaring that they're appropriate now. And those were state mandated provisions, so very little to none.
We can't change that, right?
We can table this thing.
We can't change
I
that.
don't recommend it at all, but yes, have that ability.
Distinguished board members, Mr. Perez, I got a question. Okay, you drive around town, you see people watering their lawn. You get a water bill, so you know who the person that's watering their lawn 5 times a day. How come you don't penalize the person that's watering the lawn and using up all the water versus penalizing everybody? You know who's doing it by the water bill, who's watering their lawn 20 times a day and using X amount of dollars of water. Now, that's kind of contradictory, because you're the water district, you sell them the water so you make money off it, but that person's wasting the water.
Good point.
You don't know how many
Can
people
you
are in the
look
house.
at, like the Southern California's got this, it says you used this much electricity this year, last year you used this much.
We do have the capability of running a report that will tell us by minute how much water you're using, when you're using it, and we can do that. But what we have to do is we have to pull a person in off the street to run that program. We have a complaint. It takes them a while to pull that data up, but we can do that. If we're going to do a review of water users to determine who our violators are, it's going to take an extra body. But what we do regularly is look at the big water users. We have them already, and we see what trend that they're doing. And these big water users might have a reason because of their business or whatever they do. But those that are spiking now in residential that should be used or are using way more than they should, we can start tracking all of that. And those that claim that they weren't using it, we can pull up that data and say, boom, here's when you were, here's how much, here's the duration you were watering. We can
Mike,
do all
I'm
of
gonna
that.
cut the discussion off. We're going to make a vote on tabling this item.
It's fine.
Okay?
I'll come back at it different
Is
date.
this applied to commercial?
Yes.
Yeah, you have the new meters tells you what time they water and everything, right?
But what if there's 5 people in your family and what if there's 2?
It's not based on
Showers and that?
how much your family's using, because we can tell if you're a bigger family, or because you have a trend on how much water you use based on that. And generally that tells us that there's more people in the house. It's when you get way out there that we start grabbing that and then start looking at your water consumption. We can tell, like, every minute, how long are you taking showers, because that occurs in the morning most of the time, or in the late evening, and we can see that. Or you got a lush lawn. Everybody else is.
Oh, yeah,
Since
right
you
down
brought
the
this
street.
up, Steve, I got a quick question. My wife runs a daycare out of her house, right? I have 6 people in my house, just family-wise. All of us shower, right? The daycare, she uses water for the daycare, right? And we try and cut back our our watering usage. But I'm going to tell you right now, a person with 2 people that have little lawn is not going to use as much water as I do, and I'm going to be quoted as a big abuser of water usage.
No, that's not what I said. In fact, most of the water consumption waste is used exterior and not interior. There are things, and we'll get that sent back out to you so it'll kind of jog your thought process. But if you do, let's say a 25% reduction in your watering, if you're watering 10 minutes, that's 2.5 minutes less that you water. And so that's an example. It is, you don't have to shut off your water when you're looking at percentages. Look at your water consumption and where you're using it and cut back a percentage of what you're normally doing. And that's a good gauge for anybody to use. But a lot of people don't realize brushing their teeth, how much water is used when you turn on that tap, wet your toothbrush, sit there and brush your teeth, and the water's still running. So we'll send those things back out and give everybody an idea of how much water is being used.
So, yes, okay, I'll entertain a motion to table item D. Second? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. 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 Ladies and gentlemen, the reason we're tabling this is to give you a chance to go online and read the ordinance to see what this ordinance is going to be involved. There was changes made to it, and we want to give you the time to look at it, and we'll have it on the agenda for the next meeting. You can come back and we can discuss it again at that time. They've moved to item E, and we've also been asked to table this item. So entertain a motion to table. Council, you want to give an explanation on why we're asked to table?
How about we table?
It's been moved and seconded to table item E. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Okay, moving to item 10, consent calendar. Item A, approved Director Ryan Glennon's expense report dated 3/34/2015 in the amount of $397.60. Item B is treasury report as of March 2015, received and filed. Item C, cash balance as of March 2015, received and filed. Item D, approved regular board meeting minutes of March 11, 2015.
I move we approve the consent calendar with one correction. I think it's probably 324. Is that correct? 334 is an impossibility.
Three twenty-four.
So that correction, I definitely we accept the consent calendar.
We have a second? Second. Mr. Shingledecker. Do we have any public discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Move to item 11, outstanding items, written communications. Are there any written communications?
I'd ask that the Abundant Harvest Organics Miami Week 34 be added to our communications.
Have you given staff a copy?
I did. So that's
Item 2, future non-scheduled agenda items.
what's the non-scheduled agenda?
If there are any, we listed in there, bring it back up at some future.
Some of the stuff that came up in the meeting for some.
The request for future agenda items.
I guess one of the future agenda items I want to have locating property for ballparks. I know we don't have any money in ballparks, but it never hurts to do a little planning since the county's not going to do that. We should probably look into that. Add an agenda item for the future called locating property for ballparks.
That was under future?
Future request for future agenda items, number 3,
Okay.
or you can do it number 2.
Where are we gonna get the water?
Future.
Water.
Future. Not tomorrow.
Okay, we're going to move to item 12, adjournment. Entertain a motion to adjourn. I'll make a motion. Perfect. Motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We're adjourned.